Conference record has joined the conference.
Okay, I believe we're recording. Oh my goodness. So this is Hillary and Erin from APIP, and we're really delighted to have you and your patience with us as we got started this morning. Basically, as you know, we've had this is our 13th year of volunteer monitoring, and we've always used paper forms, but in recent years, the iMapInvasives database, which is the statewide online database, has gotten established and is becoming the statewide repository for all invasive species data. And so we're really encouraging this transition from kind of a more local database here at APIP to instead join in with the statewide database. So your assistance to help get your data directly entered into iMap is a great help. We're certainly still willing to do that data entry, but if you're willing to take that next step and enter it does really help with time savings on our end. So thanks for joining the call this morning, and please feel free to ask questions as we go along. And at this point, I'll just turn it over to Jennifer to run with the show. And I know we're starting late. We'll still plan to get you out by noon. So thanks so much for your patience this morning so far. And Jennifer, take it away.
All right, thanks, Hillary. And yeah, we always buffer plenty of time, so I think we'll finish up by noon with no problem. And I'm Jennifer Dean. I'm with the New York Natural Heritage Program, and we're a partnership with the Department of Environmental Conservation and the College of Environmental Science and Forestry. So we're actually housed out of the state agency building down in Albany, and as the Heritage Program, we were tasked by the state to start maintaining the information about invasive species.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, I'm going to pause you. I don't know if you're on a headset or a speakerphone, but the connection did get a little less clear.
Oh no, so you can't hear me quite as well?
Not quite as well. You sound okay, but it does kind of go in and out of touch.
Oh dear. Should I try to call back on a different phone?
I don't know. Are other people having a challenge hearing?
I was, but now it sounds clearer. This is Holly, and it was going in and out.
Yeah, okay. I'm so glad.
No, that's okay.
You may want
to let me try calling back with my cell phone. Here, I'll just stay on the connection.
Well, that sounds better there.
Really?
Yeah, maybe it was just like away from your mouth, or I don't know.
Yeah, well, I have two computers set up here. I have one with the voice over, or the phone, and then one with the actual screen. So if I talk directly into the one with the phone, can you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm going to do then. just yell at me if I start to drift.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. No problem. Great. So I'm going to just jump right into things. So we maintain this database for invasive species locations and survey efforts. And the database system that we use is iMapInvasives. And so our New York-specific website, you can see up here on the screen, is iMapInvasives.org. And so that will be this will have a lot of information that will be important for your data recording, and also there's the big button there to log in. And so everyone that's taking the training will be able you'll get your own personal login account if you don't have one already. And one thing that I would like everyone to do, either now or sometime after you take the training, if you can see there's this request a login button right here. And so if you can fill that out, and that'll give us the information we need to create your account. And when it gets to describe your interest, go ahead and say participated in the APIP Lake Volunteer webinar training. And so that will prompt me to know which level to set up your account. And then we'll send you an email back with information that you need to log in. All right. So assuming that once you have your account, then you come back to this webpage and you see that big Login Now button. So I'll go ahead and push on that. And this takes you to your main login interface. Just so you know, once you do get your account created, we'll send you your information, but typically the first 3 letters of your first name and your full last name, all lowercase and all one word. And then our password, well, you won't be able to see it when I type it in, but it's the default password is changing 2014. And that's all one word, all lowercase. So like I said, you'll get that information in the email. And so today I'm going to do something a little different than what I usually do because we are actually in the process of rolling out a brand new version of iMap today. So the programmers are working on this behind the scenes. And there's some really exciting new features that will affect your survey data entry. So what I did is I actually made a big collection of screenshots that so I'm going to do this as a presentation instead of driving live on the site because I want you to see the new features that are coming out here in the next couple hours that will be the new version of iMap, and so that you'll be ready to go once you log in with the new features. So can everyone see the information okay on the screen that I just popped up? I mean, you don't have to read the fine text, but as long as everything looks clear enough, I'm going to go through this presentation and then, yeah, feel free to stop me as we go along and ask any questions that you might have.
What you said, can we see the screen? What is it we should be looking at?
It looks like the web page, the login page. There's my username is in there, jmdean_5.
Okay.
You see that? Okay.
Yep.
Everyone's good? Great. Yeah, good question. It's always a challenge doing webinars because you forget about that, you know, the face-to-face cues that you can pick up on. So once you log in for the first time, you'll get a legal interface that you can then accept, and there's I agree to continue, and this will pop up once a month. So if you're ever curious about the legal terms behind the data, you can read through that. And then once you get into the interface, this is the main component that you'll see. You see 8 boxes, and this is the information that you'll be using on most occasions when you get into iMapInvasives. So entering data, viewing the map, viewing the table, and also query and reports, so ways to really search that data. And so the first thing I'm going to show you is how to enter a survey. And a survey is a way to record the presence or absence of invasive species that you're looking for. So it's really your search efforts. And so to do that, I go to this enter data box and I click on survey, and it brings me to this form that you need to fill in. The first question that it asks you is what type of survey you're doing. So it's kind of small text. Can everybody see some of those words okay on their computer screen? Survey type. So if I click on that drop-down box, you can see there's a number of different survey types listed. And I would recommend for your purposes to select the aquatic simple survey type. And there are a few other ones, and if you're ever curious about the other types in there, you can click on this description of all survey types link. So when I select that survey type, it actually, now it opens up the map of New York State. And it doesn't know where you are just yet or where you want to be. So you do need to type in your location. We are using Google Maps interface. So a lot of the standard geo-locations or geo-reference locations will work. Say I wanted to go to the hamlet of Loon Lake, New York. I would type that up in the search box, and then there's this go button. So I'd hit go. And that zooms me into that location. So usually like zip codes, most lake names, as long as they're not replicated throughout the state, will work. Town names, definitely, street addresses. Those will all work for searching your location. And actually coordinates as well. So if you know that information, you can put that in there.
Jennifer?
Yeah.
Jennifer, it's Ellen. We're on Indian Lake, and you said about names that are duplicated. A couple of years ago when we did the training for doing the data online, it would not accept our Indian Lake. And wondering now, like, Indian Lake is in the town of Indian Lake. It's also in the town of Lake Pleasant.
Uh-huh.
Could we identify our Indian Lake since it covers probably 3 zip codes.
Oh, right. So you want to know if it will zoom now to Indian Lake?
Will it recognize the Indian Lake we're on in Hamilton County? Because it would not recognize it 2 or 3 years ago when we initially tried to do our survey online.
Okay, so now it is working?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. Have they corrected that? Because that was something brought up with them a few years ago. And then we were told, don't do the survey online.
Yeah. Does it work usually on just a regular Google Maps interface? Have you tried that? Okay, it does. Here, I'm gonna switch gears for just a second and run over to the live website and see if we can figure out whether or not we have Indian Lake. I know that it definitely helps to put the comma NY afterwards. Let's just see. So
that's the village.
Okay, that's the village of. And you're wondering if it would go to the actual lake itself?
Yes, because in the past, as I said, the old program recognized another Indian Lake, not Indian Lake in Hamilton County.
Okay, so this is looking good now?
Yes.
No.
Well, it will, I assume, if you go down further. We're further south.
Right there.
Okay, where it says Sabile Road, Route 30.
Yeah.
You have it now.
Okay, so it's going to the town of Indian Lake, which it probably grabs that first in the map information it's drawing. So it'll at least get you pretty close. You can also do street intersections. So, if you knew or an address, if you had a specific address along, say, Lakeshore Drive here, you could type that in as well.
There are no roads on the opposite side of the lake. It's all state land.
Okay.
South further.
Okay. Well, I'll show you here in a moment. So when you I'm switching back to my screenshots now. So when you zoom in, the address or the town name that you put into the search box, that just gets you kind of close. But you can use the zoom ladder here on the side to zoom around, and you can also grab the map and pan it, just like I did on the other map. So you can, get pretty close with those search strings, and then you might have to actually navigate the map yourself a little bit to get you to the exact spot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you do have, I don't know, up on the left-hand corner here, there's these different base layers. So you can toggle between the satellite imagery, the street view, and so forth. So yeah, so once you get to the spot where you did do your survey, so say here on Loon Lake, we just surveyed this one section of Loon Lake. You can see the reflections of the clouds in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw basically a shape around the area where I actually was out paddling and searching. And so you can see up in the upper right-hand corner of the map, there are these little buttons. There's a red plus button and a green plus button. So I'm going to click that green one, and that's to create my shape. So when I press that, as I start clicking on the map, you can see a shape starts forming on there. So I'm clicking at the points to, clicking along the outline of the area that I searched with my pointer. And we call this a polygon. So, a shape with any number of sides. And you can make this as precise or as rough as you need to. And so one thing that I do want to let you know, so if you can see when I go forward, right here, I dragged my pointer and I caused the shape to overlap on itself. You definitely want to avoid overlapping the edges of the shape because the programming really does not handle that well. It'll get mad at you. So, make sure that when you do your shape and you double click to finish off the shape, that everything's smooth, it's not overlapping. And you'll see that when you double click to release the pointer and finish making your shape there, then all these little vertices, these little balls here, appear on the edge, and you can drag those as well to further refine the shape. If you realize you didn't quite get a pocket of space that you really wanted to capture as an area that you surveyed, you can further drag those shapes into a different spot. So that captures the area where you've looked. And so the next step that you want to do is start filling in data about your survey itself. So you had already selected your survey type. Next is a lead contact. And so Hillary and Erin, I'm guessing, will Erin be the lead contact for most of these surveys?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when you're entering these, put Erin down as your lead contact. You can put down a project name. So when we create your account, we'll add you to the APIP. We'll have a 2014 volunteer project. And so you'll see that on your drop-down. You can select that project name. And then you can fill in additional data. Like if you wanted to create a site name, you could do that. Say this was the Southeast Inlet. Or, you know, if you had a specific name to the area that you surveyed, you could certainly put that there. Survey goal, I believe in the past we've put down, to find new infestations. And then you also need a start date and an end date. All these fields that are in pink are required to be able to save the survey record. So typically it might be on the same day that you did the survey and ended the survey. So just put both of those in there. And then the next question is the target species. So this is what you are looking for. And this is in scientific names. So I think in the past we've had, you know, a list for the volunteers, and I guess everyone has taken identification training. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So you should have a list of 5 to 10 species that you are specifically trained for and looking for. And so that's kind of what your search image is working on. Here's the list of species that we had from one of the previous year's surveys. I don't know, Erin or Hillary, do you know if there's additions or deletions to this list?
Looks like, I think it's good.
Okay, great. So I think there are, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 species on there. So
just a quick interjection that those of you who have been with our training program or attended this year, there are step-by-step instructions that spell each of these steps out in your training manual. Or if you already have a training manual, it would have been materials that either Megan or Erin sent to you as supplemental information. So if you don't have those, send Erin an email and we'll be sure to get you those step-by-step instructions.
Oh, great. And so the next step is this targeted species detected. And this is really important if you have a positive hit. So if you find one of those species that you're looking for, you need to list that here. And once again, it's by scientific name, and you can put as many species as you need to in that box. You just, as you start typing in here I have an example. As you start typing in this name, then it starts, constraining that list of the 400 species that we have in there until it gets the actual species name that you're looking for. So you just build your list from there. And then also with that targeted species detected, so, if you did not have any positive hits, then you could put the first species, or the first choice on the list is none detected. So you could put that in hopefully that's, the outcome of your survey is that you did not detect any of these invasive species. And so you could select that. And then one other thing that I wanted to note, I'm going to go back here for a second. If you do have a positive hit, so that you fill something in this targeted species detected, you do want to make an observation record, which I will walk you through here in just a moment. There is a link right here that says, enter an observation record for any targeted species found. You can click on that and it'll open up the observation data entry. So I'll show you that in a moment. And that's because the alerts that we have programmed into iMapInvasives run off of this observation feature. They don't run off of, so if you put something in here, like if you found hydrilla and only put it in this line, it would not trigger the alerts that that go off when something is entered into the database with the observation. All right. So I'm going to carry on with the survey. Any questions so far?
I guess I have a question, Jennifer. With the observations, I know in the past we'd recommended people do the observation form first. So does that new link make it so that they don't need to first record the observation and then fill out the survey?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I do remember talking about that a couple years ago. And, you know, I think you can do it either way that you feel comfortable. So, you know, if you do have a positive hit, then it is, you know, so important to get that observation record in there. So, you know, that might be worth it. The first thing that you do when you log in is to enter the observation, but it's not required to do one in front of the other one.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. And so there are a lot of other data fields that you can fill in. And here there's this advanced survey field, and it has a lot of drop-down options. So if I were to click on who, then it would expand open and give me a lot more data fields to fill in. So if you wanted to list all the people who were helping you with that survey, it's really nice to be able to capture how many hours that survey took, so that, you know, Erin and Hillary at the end of the summer can add up all the man hours essentially that went into these volunteer surveys. So a lot of information that can go in there. So be sure to look at those. I think the who is probably the most important, but definitely checking out these other fields as well. And these are on the survey data sheets that I don't know, Hillary or Erin, are the survey data sheets also in the training packets? Do they have copies of those? Okay, great. And so another section that, since we selected a Aquatic Simple survey, there's a lot of data fields that are specific to aquatic surveys. So you have your water body type. You know, none of these are required fields, but they're helpful to have that information in there. Water body name, you can fill that in with the drop-down list. And then your survey methods. These are the important ones to fill in, like how did you actually conduct this survey? So maybe you were if you were only on your kayak or canoe, and so you were looking down from your boat down into the water as opposed to, say, snorkeling or walking along the shoreline, then you could select top water. But we do have shoreline and snorkeling as options in there. And then specific survey method, there are a number of options on here. And a couple of common ones are the rake tosses, which I think everyone has been trained in, but also visuals. So if you're looking down from the side of the boat, you can put that as well. So you can put as many methods as needed to capture that. And then you could put some additional comments if you wanted to. You might want to go into the specifics of how many rake tosses you wanted to throw out there. You know, just additional information to help us interpret the findings from the survey. And there are a lot of comment fields, so if there's additional information that we just didn't think of to ask you, you can certainly put that in there. And then one thing you always want to make sure you do is to push the Update Main Survey button here at the bottom of the screen. You can even start the survey record early on, you know, and go in there and you can save. Once you get those required fields in there, you can go ahead and save it, and you can always come back to it and modify it or, you know, fill in the additional information. Okay, so it's pretty simple once you've done it once or twice. You know, I think getting that shape on the map takes a little bit of practice, but there are some help tips up there. You'll see a lot of these question marks along the side, and there's one of these up by the map area as well. And if you hover over those, it'll give you a little extra explanatory text to help guide you through the data entry process. So any questions about the survey component?
Can you hear me, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, this is Bob. I had a question.
Yeah.
There are several of us that are going to be surveying Lake Abenakis, but I'm going to be doing the data reporting. So I'm assuming that the WHO, that's where I would list the multiple people that are also working on this. Right? Are there any other places that, I should put multiple names?
I think that would be the main spot. Yeah, so under the WHO category, you can list out all the people who helped out with that survey. I think that'd be the best area to put it in.
Okay. And the second question I have then is, can I be entering the information? In other words, the other day I was out and I surveyed part of the lake. So it's going to be an incremental process. Do we wait till the end to enter everything in, or as I incrementally, monitor the lake, can I enter portions of survey?
Oh yeah, I would say that you could certainly you could do it one of two ways. You could I would think probably the best way would to be create a separate survey record each time you go out there and survey. I mean, do you think this would be over, say, like 10 survey efforts, or maybe just?
I mean, we don't stay there, so we're, we come up and we visit. So I do some surveying and that type of thing. So I can wait till September and put it all in, or I can do it incrementally throughout July and August.
Right. Well, that's a good question, and Hillary and Aaron, feel free to chime in if you have a specific way you would like to see that data recorded. I mean, there's a couple different options. You could, each time you actually do a survey, you can create a separate survey record, and so you'll have each of these separate shapes and detailed data information there, which is tied to that specific date that you went out. Another thing you could do is create the initial survey record, and you can come back in and modify that polygon as you survey more of the lake. But it does have to be contiguous. Like, you can't draw a shape on, say, the southern inlet and then go do the northern inlet and have two separate polygons on the map. You have to have contiguous area to be able to extend that polygon into. So that might not be the best option.
So if it was contiguous, I could just go in and continue to modify it. But if I was going to have separate, I'll create separate survey records.
Right. Or like you said, you could wait till the end of the season, and you could, outline the whole area of the lake that you ended up surveying and record your information then.
Okay.
But I would, if you did have some positive hits, had some observations, I would go ahead and, get those positive hits entered in so that information can be available to people who might need to go out and follow up on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have a question. So, Bob, this is Hillary. I think either of those options, whatever is more convenient for you is fine from our perspective. We really appreciate that you're willing to take the extra step to use iMap. I do have a question for Jennifer, though, so let's say, because sometimes we will have a volunteer that will survey disparate parts of a lake. So we often say, if you can't get to the whole shoreline, focus on certain areas where invasives might be likely to be found. And so if I'm hearing you correctly, for instance, if they surveyed the inlet area and the outlet area, they couldn't mark two polygons on one survey form. They would have to fill out two survey forms?
That's right. Yeah, they would have to do two.
Okay. I don't know if we can talk offline. I don't know if that would be something that in the future, with other iterations of iMap, that would be helpful. Again, just for streamlining. But so that's good clarification for this. At this point in time, though, if you're doing a non-contiguous survey, you would have to fill out a survey form for each little section that you're doing.
Yeah. And, one thing that you could do as well, if you're doing, say 3 separate parts of the lake on the same day, so you're using the same methods, I would utilize one of those comment fields to reference one of your survey records that you put in those full details. So create one survey record that has all the details that you need, and then create your second and third survey record essentially just to show the area, and then put a reference to that ID number of the first survey that has all those full details. You know, say survey number 1234 for the full details of our method.
Okay, that's good advice. So when do you get that survey record number?
Oh, so as soon as you hit this update main survey for the first time, it will reload, and then your survey will be locked into the database with its own number. You know, it kind of pops up here, but I'll show you I do have some ways that you can search all the survey records to find your pocket of information, like all the surveys that you've entered. So it's easy to come back and find that number again.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
This is Marcus. I had a quick question on the functionality of those drawing. You do the polygon and you hit the green button. Is there any other drawing options? For example, can you draw a line along a section of shore, or is it just limited to polygoning?
That's a great question. And actually, with this new release that we have coming out today, there is a new survey type called linear, and that allows you to draw a line and then pick a distance that you buffer that line. So basically your peripheral vision that you're viewing. So if you're only seeing, say, 10 feet from your shoreline survey into the water, then you would pick 10 feet, and it would basically create a polygon with you or for you. The only problem with that is that the data fields are slightly different. It's not going to ask you specific things about aquatic surveys because the linear survey is more general. It can be used for terrestrial or aquatic surveys. But most of the main information would be there. It's just these last few questions that are specific to aquatic surveys that would not be in that survey type.
So in that case, Marcus, I think what our recommendation would be, because we do want to keep the data fields aligned with an aquatic survey, is that I think the way we've handled that in the past is actually just make a very skinny polygon. So that it would essentially appear linear, but you still have the polygon type of functionality, I guess.
Okay, and I was thinking that that might be a way of portraying different sections of the lake that were done, because of the conversation that we just had about if you're doing a north section and a south section, but you're not going to do what's in between, that you want to depict that. The polygon, if you could only do one, you're basically blocking in the entire lake. With a line, you could show, you could even color the line to show different sections. But I don't want to sidetrack the conversation. I was just looking at there was a way to address that rather than having to, block out the entire lake or do multiple surveys.
No, that's a good question. And so to that point, Jennifer, is it the same with a linear thing that can you only have one line per lake?
That's right. Yeah. So if you did two separate shorelines, you would still need to create two separate survey records. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good questions. Yeah, keep them coming. So when I've entered my survey in there, it's locked into the database, and here in a little bit I'll show you how to search all those surveys that have been entered into there with the view table features. But before I do that, I want to show you how to enter your positive hits, your observations, essentially. So if you did see something, you found some Eurasian water milfoil when you're doing your survey, you would come back to this main screen, or you could have clicked that link from the survey data entry part. You go to observation. And an observation is that it's tied to a who, what, where, when, essentially. So, you saw something at a certain point in time by a certain observer. So if I click on that observation data entry, the first thing that it prompts me to do is upload a photo. And photos are really helpful for identification purposes. Hillary and Erin would be able to log in and see your observation with your photos. Now, Hillary and Erin, do you also have a protocol for collecting specimens for the volunteers?
Yes.
Okay. So, follow all those protocols that you've been trained in, first and foremost. And then, with the photos that you have, if you take photos with a digital camera or your cell phone when you're up there, then it's really helpful to have it uploaded as well. But this is not a required step, so don't let that be a hindrance to entering data if you don't have a way to easily get your digital photo into your computer and up here. But if once you do have your digital photos on your computer, so you've downloaded them on there, essentially you would just choose File on one of these, and it pops open your file selector on your computer. You can navigate to your pictures, and so say you found some Eurasian water milfoil, you click on that picture that you took, and then it would upload it to your observation. And then the second step is who saw it. And typically you're the observer if you're entering it, but like somebody already mentioned, there will be people entering for other folks. And so you could select no, I'm entering data for, and if I selected on this, there'd be a big long list of people who are somehow associated with the iMap database. But if you don't see the name of that person listed, then you would select no, the observer is not listed. And essentially it would pop up our email address. And you would shoot us a quick email, and we would create a data entry or an account for that person to have their name listed as the observer, just to give credit to the person who saw it. But typically you're the one who saw it, so you would click that, and then these arrows here on the right-hand side are what take you to the next step. You can also click on these numbers across the top as to go to each step. And the next question is whether this is part of a project. And so once again, you'll be all added to the APIP 2014 Volunteer Lake Monitoring Program, so that you'll see that on your drop-down list. If you've also been a part of other iMap projects, you'll see them listed here as well. So you select that and go to the next step. And then, so what you saw, and you guys are looking for plants, but if you did see an aquatic animal you wanted to report, you could certainly do that here, or an insect. But I have plants selected, and I'm going to select it by common name. If you click on the common name, you'll get a list of, the 350 different plants that we have listed. You can go through those to select Eurasian water milfoil. But you can also do it by scientific name, and they'll auto-populate each other. And so a little thumbnail pops up when you select that species, and some links for further information. And so once you have the right species in there, you click that next arrow. And so when you saw it, it defaults to today, but you can click anywhere on the calendar to drive to previous days. And then where you saw it. Oh, was there a question? No. Okay. So the next spot is where you saw it. And there's a number of different ways to do this. If you had a GPS unit with you and you have the longitude and latitude, you could certainly type those in and then hit update map, and that will drive you to those coordinates. And there's different coordinate systems that you could select, but you can also search by location. And so you click in that little search by location bar. So you wanted to type in Loon Lake once again, and then make sure you hit go. And so that will zoom you into the Loon Lake location. And then this is new for anybody who's been used to iMap in the past. This is one of our big changes for this next rollout. Now we're placing the point on the map as opposed to before we had two maps that were tied together, one that was zoomed out and one that was zoomed in. But now you just have one main map interface that you can navigate by dragging the map, zooming in and out with the zoom ladder. And we have these little pencils, so this green plus button is what's going to enable your dot that you can put on the map. And then if you ever put it in the wrong spot, you want to remove it, you can use this red X. So I click that green plus, and so now I have this little ball tied to my pointer, and I click it on the spot on the map that I want my infestation to show up at. And then you get this, once you click it on the map, you get this kind kind of yellow bullseye, and the center of that point is where it's denoting your location. And so that gets your position right where you need it. And you can zoom in a little bit more. You do have to be aware that in some of the areas of the Adirondacks, we don't have satellite imagery up for like the top parts of the zoom ladder. So if you try to zoom in real close, it might tell you that there's no imagery available. So if that's the case, just back out a little bit. And so once you get your point put in the right spot, you go to the next step, and this is just a little summary of what you entered, and you submit your observation. And so once you check everything over, you hit submit. And what that does is now that has locked it into the database. And it does create a unique ID number, just like with the survey. And so, definitely make sure that it does create an ID number here. Every once in a while, there's a hiccup in the server, and it might say invalid ID, or it might be blank. If you don't see an ID number there, then something did go wrong, and it didn't save your record. So make sure that you see an ID number that is clickable, and it will open up the full record that you just entered, and I'll show you that here in a moment. But it also gives you a couple other options right here. One is to submit an assessment, which gives you an opportunity to just add more details about that finding that you saw. You can view that observation on the map, but you can also hit this submit another observation, and that's handy if you're entering a big stack of papers, of field forms, say, for the whole summer. If you hit that, it maintains all those selections you just made, so the location and the date. So you could, say, jump to the different, like if you just wanted to change the species, if you saw 2 different species at the same location, that would be an easy way to enter both of them in quickly. I'm going to go ahead and hit the submit assessment just to show you what's there. I feel like the basic reporting is the most important part. So what we've done so far, that who, what, where, when, that's what you need to do if you do have a finding. The submit assessment is it's an optional feature to, if you did want to go into more details, you could. I don't want to bog anybody down with too much information, but I want to show you what is available to you. So when I hit assessment, it's going to give me essentially a map zoomed in of that area where I put my observation point. It's kind of hard to see on the screen, but there's a red dot with my observation right there. And what I did was use that polygon creator tool, or that shape creator tool, and I clicked the area where my infestation is actually found, so that footprint of the infestation. And that gives me, kind of the square footage of how much it's covering, and I also get a chance to add more information about it. Now, if I zoomed in a little bit more, like I said, sometimes the satellite imagery is not as good up there in the Adirondack, so you might get this no imageries here. And if that's the case, just back out on that zoom ladder. So once you get your polygon in place, then you scroll on down, and you'll see all these different fields that you can fill in. And none of these are required. It already has your observation ID tagged to it, so these are 2 data types that are tied one-to-one. But you could fill out any of this information that you wanted to, valuation type, site disturbance, so forth. There's information about how much is covered. So, within your polygon, maybe just 50% of that water underneath that shape is actually covered in Eurasian water milfoil, so you can keep that there. Maybe there's native vegetation as well. So a lot of information that you could fill in about that infestation. You could select whether the distribution is dense, or maybe it's a monoculture, and completely covering that area. You could indicate that. And there's questions about substrate type, water depth, floating regulations, and so forth. And so once again, there's always this important button at the bottom to save your work, so the update assessment. So make sure you click that, and then that will save your assessment record into the database. And it'll be tied to that observation, so you could always get back to it.
So I'll just make take a minute and say, well, thank you, Jennifer. I know we're not done yet, but so far it's been really very clear, I think, at least from, again, I always have to brush off the instructions myself on every time I go back to enter data. So just as a quick reminder to everyone on the call, in the training manual, we do have step-by-step instructions that says how to complete observation and assessment and survey data sheet. So we are asking that if you're able to take a little extra time for the assessment that Jennifer just went through, it does give a little more information, not just about you found our Eurasian water milfoil at this site, but doing the assessment gives us a little sense of, how pervasive it is, how dense it is, and the depth and so forth. So there are good instructions, I hope, in the training manual, and if you have any questions at all, Erin is here to help as well.
Great. And just that's a great reminder for me, too, to show you that there's these tabs across the top here on this main dashboard. And there's a resources tab, and it has PDF versions of all those handouts. So but I'm guessing some of the APIP handouts probably have a lot more specific details, but this will at least give you the general guidelines for entering an observation, entering an assessment. So all those how-to step-by-step sheets are also under that resources tab. All right. And so the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to get that information back out that you just entered in. So we can go to this area that says View Table. This is one way to see a list of all that information. I'll show you that first. And so I'm going to click on All Observations to look at, and this will give me a table of all the observations that are in the database. So we have about 90,000 observations that have been made throughout the state. That's aquatic and terrestrial, insects, plants, animals. And so you really want to filter that down. So I find popping into the observation table and then searching for my name is a quick and easy way to find my records. And so it'll filter down anything that has my name in it. I can see that observation that I just entered, that Eurasian water milfoil. And so if I click on that, that'll open up the details of what I just entered. And so you can see where I put my point. I can actually modify it at this point. So if I realize I put it on the wrong shore, I could zoom in and then modify the map to get that point in the right spot. The next, as you scroll down, you can see what photos you've uploaded. You can upload new photos at this point. And you can also change a lot of the information. So because this is just when the point is still new, when it's still an unconfirmed point, that you can edit this information. So if you realize that you put in the wrong species, you could change that. Or if you wanted to add some additional comments, you could do that as well. Maybe somebody, maybe had Erin as the expert to identify this species so that you know who was the expert confirmation on there. You could do that as well. If you had information about how to access the site, like where the boat launches, you could put a lot of specific details in there. And you can also see if there is an assessment tied to this observation, and that's a clickable link. If you did not add an assessment when you made the observation originally, so if there's none here, then you would see a link to create an assessment at this point if you wanted to. So that's also another new feature. We used to have it limited. You could only create an assessment at that exact moment that you made an observation. Now you can do it later on. And then some other information that's already auto-populated that might just be useful. DEC regions, DOT regions. This is spatial information that's grabbed by our programming. And once again, you always need to update your observation to save that data that you put in there. And then, so we do review these records, and actually with Erin as the project leader, she'll get a chance to review all the observations that get in there. And then, Erin, I'll get to talk to you about it later, but you'll actually be able to confirm these records. That's another new feature we have within iMap.
Great.
Yeah, so once the observation's confirmed, that's when it gets locked down. So you can't make any edits after that point. But before, when it's still unconfirmed, then you can certainly get in there and make some modifications if you want to. And there's, you can always contact us if you realize you made a mistake, or if you want the observation deleted. You would just send us the observation ID number, and we can get that out of the system for you. All right, so that was how to see your observation record and how to get all that information, and a few extra details if you wanted to. But you can also look at your survey records that way. So if I click on View Table and click on Surveys, whoops. Oh, see, this is one of the downfalls of using a presentation as opposed to driving on the live site. I need to remember exactly what order. We're actually going to jump to the map now, so I'll come back to the survey table here in a little while and show you how to get to those. So let's go ahead and get into the map, because it is I feel like it's the most fun part to look at the map and start exploring the data that's in here. So if you've had any experience with mapping software, this is very similar layout. It's kind of a simplified version of what the mapping professionals use, but you don't have to have any experience with different mapping softwares to use this. But essentially, we have the map on as the main feature within the screen. But then on the left-hand side, we have these choices that we call the table of contents. And this gives you all these different layers that you can put on there. So if you wanted to, say, turn on the street maps, or if you want to put on the county boundaries, you can do that. And so what I'm going to do is zoom in, so you can, once again, type in zoom to location. I zoomed into Loon Lake, and then I turned on the layer to show the different surveys. So I turned on the survey layer, and that, so I can see the layer or the survey that we entered here a little while ago. If I click on that, I can get more details, and so you can see this for anybody's information that's been entered, which is also helpful if you have multiple people entering surveys on the same water body. You can see what's already been surveyed for that year. And anytime you click on any of the features on the map, it pops up a little table, and then you can click on those ID numbers to get that really detailed record that we just saw.
So Jennifer, as you know, with APIP, every year we encourage people to go out and do the same survey so that we know if anything new gets in. So, for instance, if a volunteer ends up, participating for the next 5 years and does a survey every year, if they zoom into that section, how would those multiple years of data be displayed?
Oh, that's a good point. So if you're coming to the map just like a clean map and you didn't do any queries beforehand, if you didn't filter out the information, it would show you all those polygons, basically stacked up on top of each other. So if you did 5 years of surveying in the exact same spot, when you clicked on the polygon, it would give you a table of those 5 different surveys that you did. I will show you here in a moment how to filter that out. So if you only wanted to see, say, last year's surveys, you could do that as well. All right, so if I'm zooming in again, one thing that is important, just a little nuance with the programming, when you type in your location, be sure you hit this magnifying glass, and that will zoom you to your location. And also when you're typing in species there, just an important thing to make sure it works correctly. You do have these, as I mentioned, the different layers, so I just turned on the Google terrain layer, as opposed to we had the hybrid layer on before, which gives you the satellite imagery. And here I'm showing you how I actually turned on the survey layer. So if I scroll down on this table of contents, you can see there's an option for survey. I click on that, and that's what gave me the table from before. So if there were 5 surveys, in that same location, then it would give me a table with all 5 of those. You could look at, pick which one based on the date that you have there. So another thing I wanted to show you was how to search by species. So that same box that you used to zoom to location, you can also type a species name in there. So if I wanted to, find Eurasian water milfoil, if I start typing in the name, then it'll pop up the matching species that we have a record for within the database. Once again, hit that magnifying glass and then give it a little bit of time. Sometimes, depending on your connection speed, this can take upwards of 20 seconds to load all that spatial data onto the map. But what it's doing now is it's showing us all the observations in the state for Eurasian water milfoil. And you'll see that there's these red dots and these orange squares. And if you look over here on the table of contents, it gives you a little bit of an explanation of what those are. That the red dots have actual coordinates associated with them. And so, I can zoom to those exact locations, whereas these orange squares are called approximate records. And those actually don't have exact coordinates. They might have, say, a town name or, maybe even county level. And it's something that typically we get these from herbarium records. Like we got a whole bunch of data at one point from the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. And so they had statewide coverage of a lot of these species, but they didn't have exact coordinates. They might have, a town name or street intersection, but we still wanted to capture that data. But you can always turn off the approximate layer if you only wanted to see the actual georeference points there. And so I can zoom in. So say if I want to zoom in more to the Adirondack area, I can do that. And these points kind of expand. You can see the numbers indicate how many observations are there. So this one has 24 points underneath it. And as I zoom in, it'll get more and more precise. And if I click on any of those, it gives me that table of how many are underneath that bubble. Oh, another thing that's handy, if you zoom further down on the table of contents, you can turn on the Adirondack Park boundary, the blue line. You can see that turned on. And there's a lot of other options you could, if you really want to customize the map. We have towns on there, counties, and so forth, and the prison boundary as well. All right. Any questions on the map while we're out there? It's fun to just kind of play around and start exploring some of the information that we have in there and see, you guys know your lake best, see if we're missing information as well. All right. So I'm going to go back to the main dashboard and let me see so there are these tabs across the top, like I mentioned before. So that resources tab will be very important with a lot of the data sheets and the how-to tips are there. So if I scroll down on this dashboard page, there's a place to edit your profile. Make sure your email address is correct in there. If you forget your passwords, you would use that. And you can also change your password at that point. And you can also set up email alerts. So if you want to be made aware of any time Eurasian water milfoil is entered into, say, the Adirondack Park or ATIP area, you could certainly set up an alert for that. And then down here, this My iMapInvasives data is a quick and easy way to view your data or to download your data. So if you had a lot of observations and you wanted to get that back out and say like an Excel spreadsheet format, you could certainly do that. And if you have mapping software, you can also download that advanced data to further refine that information. All right, so back to this main dashboard, one other thing I wanted to show you was other ways to really search and filter all that information in there. So the query and reports are really powerful tools to dig through the information in the database. So if I click on this custom observation query, it opens up this tool, basically a filtering tool, so I can select different criteria on how I want to, filter things down. So I could select, say, a certain county under geography. I could select a certain project. So say if you wanted to see all the APIP from Volunteer Lake Monitoring Program data from 2013, you could do that. And keeping in mind this is for the observations. So I clicked View on Map. Here, let me go. I kind of went quickly there. On the bottom here, once you get all your criteria selected, then you pick whether you want to look at that in the table, a report, or on the map. So if I click View on Map, then I get a nice layout that I could zoom into of all the observations that are entered into that project from last year. And then another way to search things specifically for the surveys is under the View Tables to select survey, the table of all the surveys that are out there. And so, this is have a long list. In that search box, you could type your name once again to, filter out quickly all the observations that you've entered. But there's also this button for Custom Data Query up here in the top. And this is where you can really filter out things filter out the surveys based on date, organization, project. So you could put a specific project. You could look for species that have been looked for but not found. So if you want to look for, say, all the lakes where hydrilla has been searched for and not found, you could do absent surveys for that. So it's a pretty cool tool in that aspect. But say I wanted to look for all the surveys that APIP had put in, I can view that in the table or view it on the map. And so if I view it on the map, you can see all the hard work that a lot of the volunteers have been doing with these lake surveys here in the Adirondack. So I feel like it's really impressive. You guys have been doing a great job. And of course, you can zoom in on these, and you could click on any of those surveys for more details. All right, and so that's actually the last slide that I have up there. And I can always switch over to the live site to answer any specific questions you might have, or other little things that I know. One thing that I didn't make a slide of, but that might be really helpful, are these infested lake reports. And I know that these are on the rollout that's happening today. These might look a little different when you click on them once you get your account. But this is a handy way to just search for your lake name and basically just see what's been reported for there. So you can zoom through that and see the species that have been reported.
So this is statewide?
Yeah, this is statewide. And so the version that's being released later today, it's actually more in a table format, so you'll be able to search and sort it more easily, as opposed to just a big long list that, you can use the list, but you have to use the search feature. So if you wanted to do Loon Lake, you would have to do a control find for Loon Lake, and it shows you the 2 species that have been reported there.
Right. The other thing that we may have commented on in that regard is also having, if you go back to what you were just showing, there wasn't any geographical reference information. So, like Long Pond, we have a lot of long ponds. Probably we have in the Adirondack, let alone in New York.
So that's what helped us with this next version that's coming out. So when you log in, probably tomorrow, you'll see that we've added county information in there.
Great.
Thanks for those suggestions, because that's the kind of stuff that keeps making it better.
So are there questions for Jen? We're just at 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
This is your shot at the expert. Jen's just wonderful. And iMap really is open to user feedback, and they've been really responsive. And I know that a few years ago when we rolled this out, there were still quite a few kinks, and a lot of volunteers were very frustrated. And so Megan, did her best to enter the data online. And so I think that it's really improved over the recent years, but I'm sure there's still opportunities for continued comments and feedback from you all. So one last call for any questions for Jen.
No, it was very good, very clear.
Oh, good. You're welcome. And just a quick reminder to everyone, be sure if you don't have an account to go ahead and, do that request a login feature there on the iMapInvasives.org. And that way I'll get that email and I'll create your account, hopefully today, maybe tomorrow, depending on when we roll out. And if you ever have any questions about the technology or if you just get stuck or can't remember your username, our email address is under that contact us. So just shoot us an email. There's real people behind the database, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Great. Okay. Well, gosh, even though we started a half hour late, we're still on time. So really, thank you so much, Jen. Thanks to Erin for setting this up, and thank you to all of you for your patience during our troubleshooting early on. But hopefully you found this valuable. And as I said, Erin's here to answer questions if you have any trouble entering data online. And if you prefer, again, just to use paper forms, that's fine too, and we can do the data entry. But we really appreciate your interest and at least taking that first step to try to do it online. So I guess with that, we'll close the call, unless there are any final comments.
Can I just throw out one more thing, Hillary? I just forgot. I know I said request a login if you don't already have one, but if you do already have a login, maybe just shoot us a quick email just to let us know you were on the training today. That way we can mark it in your profile that, we record all of the trainings people take, and if you're not at the right level to see survey, then we'll make sure that we get you bumped up to the appropriate level.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Well, go out and enjoy your great day that might be ahead of you, and thank you again for spending a few hours with us this morning. We really, really appreciate it. And thanks to you again, Jen.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.